All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission is, it's maybe one of the most relevant we've tackled all year, and it feels like it's custom-made for you, the learner.
It really
I
does.
mean, if you're out there seeking structure in this flood of information, we know that feeling. You're staring at a massive to-do list, feeling kind of paralyzed by all the potential, and you're just wishing for a shortcut to, well, to massive productivity.
And that paralysis is exactly what we're tackling today. We're going deep into Brian Tracy's international sensation, Eat That Frog.
Right.
And the goal is to distill its 21 principles into a system, something actionable and high impact. This isn't just theory. Think of it as a manual for immediate change.
I really appreciate that the book starts by taking a hard look at reality. I mean, right from the preface, it asserts this fundamental truth that, a lot of motivational books try to hide, which is that you will never be caught up. Ever. The moment you think you've cleared your desk, what happens? 10 new tasks, 30 emails, a dozen new messages pop up. It's an endless river of responsibility.
It is. The whole premise is that trying to do everything is, well, it's the definition of insanity in today's world. You have to accept the reality that you're probably operating at 110% capacity most days. So that sense of control, that feeling of mastery that you crave, it doesn't come from clearing the plate. It can't. It only comes from changing how you think about your work.
So it's about deliberately focusing on the few things that really make a difference.
Exactly. While ignoring or delegating or just eliminating everything else, you have to become a ruthless editor of your own time.
Okay, so let's unpack the title then, this core metaphor. What exactly is the frog we're supposed to be eating?
Right. So the frog, it's defined pretty simply as your biggest, most important task.
Okay.
But, and this is the critical distinction, it's the specific task that you are most likely to procrastinate on. Precisely because it's large, or it's complex, or maybe it's just unpleasant. But it's the one thing that, if you complete it, will have the greatest positive impact on your results.
So it's not just any tough job. It's that high-leverage task, the one that has the most psychological friction, the one you've been avoiding since Tuesday morning.
That's the one. That's your frog. And once you've identified it, the rules for consumption are absolute. The first rule of frog eating is this. If you have 2 frogs, you eat the ugliest one first.
Meaning you don't warm up, you don't check the easy emails or tidy up the small things.
True.
You launch directly into the biggest, hardest, most important task.
Yeah.
Your A1 priority, first thing in the morning.
Exactly. Head on. And then the second rule of frog eating speaks to the urgency needed. It says, don't sit and look at the live frog for very long.
Take immediate action. Don't overthink it. This speaks directly to what the author calls an action orientation, which he sees in all highly successful people.
Right. They don't dilly-dally. They don't circle the task. They just launch directly into their major task, and they work single-mindedly until they get a result.
And this action bias, it's almost a survival mechanism, isn't it?
Yeah.
The book calls failure to execute a major problem for individuals and for entire organizations.
It's a huge problem. So many people, especially in management, confuse activity with accomplishment.
Like what?
Oh, attending meetings, sending memos, reorganizing files. They feel busy. But the most effective people are the ones who, day in and day out, simply produce the required results. They are results-oriented, not activity-oriented.
But let's be honest, staring down that huge, ugly A1 task first thing in the morning, that takes a massive amount of willpower.
Yeah.
Especially when the dopamine hit from checking your phone is so much easier to get.
Of course.
So what's the psychological payoff? What makes eating the frog sustainable? Something you can do every day.
So the sustainability, it's actually rooted in neuroscience and habit formation. When you complete a major high-value task, your brain rewards you. It gives you a powerful surge of endorphins.
Okay. And this release gives you a natural, immediate high. You feel strong, competent, happy, confident. You feel like a winner. And the more important the task, the greater that rush of self-esteem.
So that completely reframes the whole exercise. You're not just overcoming pain. You are actively chasing that self-esteem boost.
You're creating a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
You can develop what he calls a positive addiction to this feeling of success.
A positive addiction. I like that.
Yeah. You subconsciously start to organize your life around seeking out and completing those important high-impact tasks. You'd literally become addicted to success itself.
That's a powerful idea. You're leveraging your brain's own reward system to fight the procrastination mechanism that, relies on those cheap short-term rewards. So how do we install this habit? The book talks about the 3 Ds.
Right, the 3 Ds, they're the roadmap. First, there's decision. You have to make a firm, unequivocal decision that you will develop this habit. It's not a wish. It's a real commitment.
Okay, decision. What's second? Second is discipline. And this is the hard part, right? It's practicing these principles over and over, day after day, even when you don't feel like it, until they become easier. That initial push is always the hardest.
And the third D has to be determination.
That's it, determination. You have to back up your decision and your discipline with this fierce determination until the habit is locked in. It's the fuel that gets you through those first few difficult weeks.
The book also touches on self-image and how that can accelerate the process. Is that just sort of feel-good fluff, visualizing success, or is there a real function to it?
No, it's highly functional. Your performance on the outside is largely determined by your self-image on the inside.
How you see yourself.
Exactly, how you see your own capabilities. So by mentally picturing yourself as this highly effective person who just crushes procrastination, you accelerate the actual process. You're feeding your internal self-image with these success stories, making it easier for your external actions to match up. You're essentially reprogramming yourself for high performance.
So let's start at the very beginning of this system. We have to establish a foundation. And that's principle one, set the table. The idea here is that clarity is the absolute essential ingredient. Without it, procrastination is almost guaranteed. Vague goals, fuzzy expectations, they just lead to confusion.
And the research completely backs this up. The book quotes Napoleon Hill, who said that success requires definiteness of purpose. If you aren't sure what success even looks like for a given day, you're naturally going to drift towards the easy stuff.
The things that require no thought.
Exactly. You have to make the invisible visible.
And the most practical way to do that is to think on paper. The statistic behind this seems almost unbelievable, which is why I think we need to look at it.
It is staggering.
Right.
Only about 3% of adults have clear written goals. But that 3% consistently accomplishes 5 to 10 times as much as people who might have equal or even better ability but just rely on mental planning.
Wow. 5 to 10 times.
Yeah. Writing a goal down forces a specific thought pattern. It crystallizes it. It turns a hazy wish into something tangible that you can act on. It gives your subconscious a concrete target.
That's the difference between saying, oh, I want to be healthier, and writing down, I will weigh 175 pounds by June 1st by exercising 30 minutes every morning. It's a huge shift.
It's a massive shift in mental commitment. And the book provides a specific, high-leverage, 7-step goal achievement formula for this. It demands real rigor.
Okay, let's walk through those 7 steps because this is where you, the listener, can find that structure. Step 1 is decide exactly what you want.
And this means crystal clear expectations. If you're in a job, this might mean sitting down with your boss until there is zero ambiguity about your goals and priorities.
Right.
This directly addresses that danger the book highlights.
Yeah.
The worst use of time is to do something very well that need not be done at all.
Oh, that's painful. Vigorously executing a task that turns out to be irrelevant.
It's a total loss. It's the classic trap of efficiency over effectiveness. You might be sprinting, but are you even running in the right direction?
Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2, write it down.
Right. We talked about the psychological power, but it also just creates a necessary reference point. An unwritten idea is just mental chatter. A written goal is an instruction.
Step 3 is set a deadline. This feels non-negotiable.
Totally non-negotiable. Without a deadline, a goal is just passive. The deadline is the forcing function. It creates urgency. And if the goal is massive, like writing a book, you set sub-deadlines for smaller chunks.
Okay, that makes sense. Then step 4, make a list of every single task you need to do to achieve that goal.
Yes. This comprehensive list moves the goal from just being an aspiration into a concrete project plan. It creates that visual track for you to run on. It's almost impossible to feel overwhelmed by a project when it's broken down into, say, 50 or 100 small defined steps.
And then you take that list, and step 5 is to organize the list into a plan.
This is the sequencing part, prioritization. You figure out what must be done first, second, third. You might use boxes or circles to visualize which tasks depend on other tasks being completed.
So once you have the plan, step 6, take action immediately.
Yeah, this is the execution moment. And the author is blunt here. An average plan that is vigorously executed is far better than a brilliant plan that's just collecting dust. You have to move the moment you have a functional plan.
And the final step, number 7, is about building discipline. It's resolved to do something daily to move toward the goal.
This is all about momentum. You build this activity into your daily schedule. It's non-negotiable. Even if it's just 15 minutes of reading or writing 500 words or making one call, you never miss a day. That consistency dramatically increases your speed because you maintain flow.
So, to apply this right now, you could take a clean sheet of paper, write down 10 goals in the present tense, as if they're already done, and then pick the one that would have the greatest positive impact.
Exactly. That one goal becomes your ultimate frog for the next 90 days. And that clarity flows right into principle 2. Plan every day in advance.
Your ability to think and plan and decide, the book says, is your most powerful tool to overcome procrastination.
The very act of advanced planning, just taking a moment to pause, it unlocks your mental power. It's the difference between driving without a map and having a GPS that's already programmed.
And this is where that legendary 10-90 rule comes in.
Right. The rule states that the first 10% of time you spend planning your work before you begin will save you as much as 90% of the time in the execution phase.
So, let me get this straight. Spending 10 or 12 minutes planning your day, maybe before you even open your email,
Yeah.
can save you up to 2 hours of wasted time later.
That's what the rule suggests. You avoid false starts, rework, ineffective effort. Think about the ROI on that. No other activity gives you that kind of leverage. It's that old military saying, proper prior planning prevents poor performance.
It saves you from having to constantly decide what to do next, which is such a drain on mental energy.
And that's why you should always be working from a list. The book claims productivity just immediately increases by 25% by consistently using a list.
And there's a subconscious advantage too, right, with planning the night before.
Yes, this is a great tip. Make your daily list the night before. This primes your subconscious mind. It works on the list all night. You'll often wake up with new ideas or insights or just a feeling of organized readiness that helps you launch into that A1 task.
Let's get practical about the list because one sheet of paper isn't enough for everything.
Hmm.
What are the 4 types of lists we should have?
Okay, so first is the master list. This is your ongoing brain dump of everything you ever want to do or achieve, big or small.
Okay.
Second is the monthly list, which you create at the end of each month for the month ahead. Third, and maybe the most powerful, is the weekly list. Taking an hour on Sunday to plan the entire upcoming week allows you to batch similar tasks and schedule those big blocks of time for your frogs.
And finally, the daily list, which is where you pull specific action items from those bigger lists. This is your guide for the day, the sequence of frogs you have to eat.
And don't forget project planning. For any multitask project, you list out every step, organize it, and visualize the whole thing before you start. If you can see yourself completing it, it reduces the urge to procrastinate.
That clarity and preparation feeds right into principle 4. Consider the consequences. This connects today's action to your future.
Superior thinking in this context is defined as the ability to accurately predict the consequences of doing or not doing a specific task.
So that's how you determine what's truly important.
It is. If the consequences are significant, it's a major frog. If the consequences are negligible, it's just a tadpole.
This goes beyond just setting goals. It's deep strategic thinking. The book cites Dr. Edward Banfield from Harvard, who found that a long-time perspective is the single most accurate predictor of success.
It's an incredible finding, more so than family background, education, anything. Successful people habitually look 5, 10, even 20 years out. They analyze their present choices to make sure they align with the future they're trying to build.
They sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term gain.
And this is exactly where procrastination comes from, isn't it? That conflict between immediate pleasure and future reward.
Definitely.
Unsuccessful people prioritize what are called tension-relieving activities. Scrolling social media, endless coffee breaks, reading the news. It relieves the tension of having to start the hard work.
Right. While winners are motivated by goal-achieving activities, things like skills development, focused work, building relationships, they postpone the easy gratification.
Your frog is always that long-term benefit hiding behind some short-term discomfort. This also brings up a classic axiom, the law of forced efficiency.
Ah, yes. There is never enough time to do everything, but there is always enough time to do the most important thing.
It's the mantra for the modern worker. Given the constant overflow of tasks, you can only ever be on top of your most important responsibilities. The rest has to fall away.
Which means we need to stop romanticizing deadlines. The idea that we only perform under pressure, that's basically a myth, right?
It's largely a rationalization for poor planning. Research shows that working under those kinds of high-pressure deadlines leads to more stress, more exhaustion, lower quality work, and more mistakes. It's always better to plan carefully, start early, and build in a buffer.
So After we have clarity and we understand the long-term stakes, how do we put this into action? The book boils it down to three essential questions, drawing from Peter Drucker.
Right, these are the three questions you have to ask yourself constantly, daily, even hourly. First, what are my highest value activities?
Okay.
What tasks, if I do them brilliantly, contribute the most value? Second, what can I, and only I do, that if done well, will make a real difference?
That's the ultimate delegation test.
It is. If someone else can do it 80% as well as you should probably let them. And third, and this is the core of it all, what is the most valuable use of my time right now? Every single minute, you should be working on the answer to that question.
That is a powerful framework, and it leads us right into strategic prioritization. We have the list, now we need the calculus to sort it.
Okay, so let's get into that strategic deep dive with Principle 3. Apply the 80-20 rule to everything. This is, arguably the most powerful concept in all of time management.
The Pareto principle. Vilfredo Pareto, back in 1895, noticed that the vital few, about 20% of the people, held 80% of the wealth. And that 80-20 ratio just shows up everywhere.
And it absolutely applies to your to-do list. 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your results. So if you have 10 items on your list, 2 of those are likely worth more than all the other 8 combined.
Okay, but here's my challenge with that. Doesn't the 80-20 rule just give us permission to ignore 80% of our responsibilities? How do you make sure those trivial many don't eventually blow up into real problems? Like neglecting necessary admin tasks.
That's a really valid concern, but the principle isn't about ignoring work. It's about ruthlessly allocating your scarcest resource, which is your time and attention.
Right.
If you spend 80% of your time on tasks that only give you 20% of the value, you're guaranteeing mediocrity. The rule just forces you to ask which 20% is the real lever. Those admin tasks, the low-value work, they still have to be done, but they should be delegated or batched or done with machine-like efficiency after the high-value work is complete.
So the core procrastination trap is rooted right here. We busy ourselves with the trivial many, those easy little tasks, to avoid starting the vital few. We confuse motion with progress.
And the rule here is absolute. You have to adamantly refuse to work on tasks in the bottom 80% while any task in the top 20% remains unfinished. You have to resist that temptation to clear up the small things first.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
The book uses a great analogy. It says low-value tasks multiply like rabbits. You'll never get caught up chasing them. The reward only comes from completing something valuable.
Okay, so once we've identified those high-leverage tasks, we need a system to organize them. That brings us to Principle 6. Use the ABCDE method continually.
The power of the ABCDE method is that it forces you to make a decision before you start working. You take your list and you assign one of 5-letter grades to every single item.
So an A item is a must-do.
Right. It has serious positive consequences if it's done, or serious negative consequences if it's not. These are your biggest frogs.
And what if you have multiple A items?
You prioritize them numerically. A1 is the biggest, ugliest frog that provides the highest return. A2 is the next, and so on.
Okay, so what about B items?
A B item is a should-do task, but it only has mild consequences. These are the tadpoles. And the cardinal rule of the ABCDE method is this. You never, ever do a B task when an A task is left undone.
That's the key discipline.
It is. Failing to stick to that is the simplest way to kill your productivity and just slide right back into procrastination.
Okay, so C, D, and E tasks are clearly lower priority.
Right. C is a nice-to-do task. It carries no consequences. Calling a friend, reading a non-work article. D tasks are for delegation. You have to delegate everything you possibly can to free up your resources for those A tasks.
And the last one, the E task, is the most liberating. Eliminate.
These are tasks that make absolutely no difference. You often do them just out of habit. Every minute you spend on an E task is time stolen from your A1 task. So the goal is simple.
No.
Once the list is graded, you discipline yourself to start the A1 task immediately and work on it single-mindedly until it's 100% complete.
The ABCDE method tells us what to do, but Principle 5, practice creative procrastination, is just as important. It's about choosing what not to do. And I find this concept so encouraging is that everyone procrastinates. High performers just choose their targets wisely.
It's about conscious choice. Creative procrastination is the thoughtful, deliberate decision to put off or outsource or just completely eliminate low-value tasks. You're choosing to procrastinate on the 80% so you can focus on the 20%.
So we have to establish posteriorities, not just priorities.
Yes, a priority is what you do more of and sooner. A posteriority is what you intentionally do less of and later if you do it at all. And this requires using the most powerful word in time management,
Which is no.
which is no. The book notes Warren Buffett attributed a lot of his success to his ability to say no to opportunities that weren't absolutely vital to his core mission.
We also have to apply zero-based thinking here.
Yes, you continually ask yourself about every commitment, every task. If I weren't doing this already, knowing what I know now, would I start doing it again today? If the answer is no, it's a candidate for elimination.
That is a fantastic way to cut through legacy processes that made sense 5 years ago but are now just draining your time.
It is. And this strategic filtering brings us to Principle 7. Focus on key result areas, or KRAs. This moves us from the to-do list to the actual structure of your job.
The fundamental question is, why am I on the payroll? You get paid for specific results, usually in about 5 to 7 key result areas.
Right. And a KRA is an activity that you are completely responsible for, and it produces an output that's an essential input for other people. For a manager, it's planning, organizing, delegating. For a writer, it might be research, drafting, editing.
And once you've identified them, the instruction is to grade yourself from 1 to 10 in each area. This forces a pretty painful but necessary self-assessment, and it reveals the weakest link rule.
The weakest link rule. It states that your lowest performing KRA sets the height at which you can use all your other skills. If you're a brilliant salesperson but you're terrible at follow-up, that weakness acts as a drag on your entire effectiveness. It holds back all of your strength.
And the book draws a direct link between that performance level and procrastination.
A critical link. People naturally avoid the jobs where they've performed poorly, which just reinforces the weakness. If you hate delegation because you're bad at it, you avoid it, and that weakness just deepens. But the reverse is also true. The better you get at any KRA, the less you procrastinate on it. Competence breeds confidence.
So the goal isn't just to work hard, it's to work hard on improving that one weakest link that's constraining your entire career. This leads to the great question for lifelong development.
You have to ask, what one skill, if I developed and did it in an excellent fashion, would have the greatest positive impact on my career? Whatever that answer is, that becomes your biggest frog for the next few months of learning.
This discussion of KRAs then scales up dramatically into Principle 8. Apply the Law of 3. This seems like the ultimate tool for leverage.
The Law of 3 states that 3 core tasks contain 90% of the value you contribute to your organization. Everything else, the other 5, 10, 15 things you do, is complementary support work that should ideally be delegated or eliminated.
And this is brought to life by Cynthia's story. The executive who was working 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, just completely overwhelmed by 17 different responsibilities.
She was stuck in the trivial many. So after being prompted, she identified her 3 true key value contributors. She delegated the other 14 support tasks and focused exclusively on those core 3.
And the result was staggering.
Within 30 days, she doubled her measurable output and her income, while at the same time cutting her work hours down to a normal 8 to 5 schedule.
That's profound. It proves that most people are just confusing the required 100% activity with the necessary 10% contribution.
Right. Your financial and emotional rewards are always proportional to the value of your contribution. To increase that value, you have to identify those 3 core areas and concentrate your energy there.
And we can apply this personally, too, with the quick list method.
Yeah, when you try to write down your 3 most important goals in 30 seconds, they almost always surface as a financial career goal, a family relationship goal, and a health fitness goal. Those are the 3 big pillars of life balance.
Which brings us back to the crucial point of balance. We're eating the frog efficiently so that we can protect our personal lives.
Exactly. Time management is a means to an end. 85% of life happiness comes from happy relationships. And the quality of those relationships depends on the quantity of time you spend face-to-face with the people you love.
So the rule is a beautiful symmetry. The quality of time at work counts. The quantity of time at home matters.
Which means when you're at work, you have to work all the time you work. If you waste time in idle chit-chat or on low-value stuff, you'll feel like you have to take work home, and that robs your family of that essential quantity of time. Mastery of the frog leads directly to mastery of your personal life.
Okay, so now that we know which frog to eat and why, we need to focus on the practical tactics for the execution phase, overcoming that initial inertia. And that's Principle 9. Prepare thoroughly before you begin. Preparation is so often overlooked, but it's that final mental push you need to launch without getting distracted. The book describes it beautifully. Being fully prepared is like a cocked gun or an arrow pulled back taut in a bow. You only need the smallest mental trigger to release it.
The steps are straightforward, but they're really powerful. First, clear your workspace. Only the materials for the single task you're working on should be visible. Second, gather all your resources, reports, files, contact info, and have them within arm's reach. You want to eliminate any excuse to stand up and break your flow.
And third, set up a comfortable, attractive workspace. A clean, neat area encourages work. Clutter just encourages distraction.
And once you're prepared, you have to launch immediately. You can't wait for the feeling of perfection to strike.
No, absolutely not. The rule is, get it 80% right, then correct it later. Don't demand perfection on the first go. That's just a fancy form of procrastination. The anxiety of taking that first step is always worse than the pain of the work itself.
It's like that Wayne Gretzky quote. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You just have to start.
And even our physical state matters here. Assume the body language of high performance.
Yes. Sit up straight. Sit forward in your chair. You're physically signaling to your brain that you're engaged and ready. Then, regardless of how you feel, you just have to plunge in.
Okay, next we address the truly paralyzing tasks. The frogs that are so big they seem overwhelming. We do this by combining Principle 10, take it one oil barrel at a time, with Principle 18, slice and dice the task.
Right. When you're facing a monumental piece of work, the slogan to remember is, by the yard is hard, but inch by inch, anything's a cinch. The psychological hurdle isn't the work itself, it's the sheer perceived size of the job. You have to break it down.
And this is captured perfectly by the oil barrel anecdote from the book, the story about crossing the Tanasroft in the Sahara.
It's a great story. The French marked that 500-mile crossing with black oil drums every 5 kilometers. And because of the desert haze and the curve of the earth, travelers could only ever see 2 barrels, the one they just passed and the one 5 kilometers ahead.
So the key to crossing the biggest desert in the world was just taking it one oil barrel at a time.
Exactly. You only need to see far enough to take the very next step.
And we apply this strategy in 2 specific ways. First, the salami slice method.
You take that huge project and you break it down into every tiny, written, step-like slices of salami. Then you just commit to doing one slice. Psychologically, completing one small piece feels manageable, not daunting. And once that first slice is done, the momentum often carries you to the second and then the third.
It's how best-selling authors do it, right?
Yeah.
Committing to just 1 page or 1 paragraph a day.
It is. And the second method is the Swiss cheese method.
Punching a hole in the task.
Right. You resolve to work on the big task for just a short, specific time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, before you move to something else. And because the task is now holy, like Swiss cheese, it loses some of its psychological intimidation.
And both of these methods rely on a powerful psychological driver, the compulsion to closure.
Yes. Humans have this deep subconscious urge to finish anything they start. By starting and completing a small piece of the frog, you trigger that compulsion and you release endorphins, which motivates you to take the next step. It turns a daunting task into a series of achievable micro goals.
Okay, so these tactics help us start the work. Principle 19 is about protecting that work, create large chunks of time. And in the modern world of open offices and endless collaboration tools, this is arguably more critical than ever.
Oh, absolutely. The most important work, those high-value A1 tasks, requires deep, uninterrupted focus. If you let yourself be constantly interrupted, you sacrifice depth for speed, and you can't achieve true high performance.
So the strategy is time blocking, basically making appointments with yourself.
You have to plan your day in advance and schedule fixed time periods for your high-value activities. You're making work appointments with yourself, for writing, for deep analysis. And you have to treat those appointments as sacred. You have to keep them.
I think the aggressive scheduling trick mentioned in the book is genius.
Yeah, scheduling large blocks of time on your digital calendar, even labeling them deep work, Project Alpha, serves 2 purposes. First, it protects your focus. But second, when your coworkers see your calendar is packed, it motivates them to schedule shorter, more efficient meetings with you. They respect your protected time.
And we have to leverage those gifts of time, right? The moments that are often wasted, like commuting.
Turn driving time into learning time. Turn a flight into an office in there. Another powerful tactic is starting early. Get up and work at home for 2 or 3 hours before you go into the busy office. The book claims you can get 3 times the work done in that protected morning window.
And that protected focus needs to be paired with energy, which brings us to Principle 20. Develop a sense of urgency. This is the psychological accelerator.
Action orientation is the hallmark of the most successful people. They plan, they prioritize, and then they launch quickly and maintain a high, steady pace. They're in a hurry to get their key tasks done, not because they're stressed, but because they're motivated.
And this high-level, continuous activity is what triggers that elusive state of flow.
Right. Flow is that highest state of human performance. It's characterized by clarity, creativity, effortlessness, and deep satisfaction. And you trigger this state by developing a sense of urgency, an inner drive, an impatience to get the job done quickly and well. It creates a powerful bias for action.
And that action bias activates the momentum principle.
It's basic physics applied to performance. It takes a ton of energy to overcome inertia and get started, but far less energy to keep going. The faster you move, the more energy you generate, the more experience you gain, and the more competent you become. It's a self-fueling cycle.
The tactical mantras here are super simple.
Just repeat, do it now. When you're starting that A1 task, and when you feel yourself getting distracted, tempted to check your phone, you repeat, back to work, to instantly refocus.
All these principles, clarity, prioritization, preparation, urgency, they all lead to this final, ultimate discipline. Principle 21. Single handle every task.
This is the execution finale. You start your most important task and you concentrate on it single-mindedly with no diversion or distraction until it is 100% complete. This is absolutely non-negotiable.
We need to just reiterate the cost of failing at this step. The efficiency loss of stopping and starting it's astronomical.
It is. The tendency to interrupt and restart a task can increase the time required to complete it by as much as 500%. Think of the mental energy you waste just refamiliarizing yourself and rebuilding momentum every single time you stop. When you work nonstop, you move along an efficiency curve and you complete high-quality work in less and less time.
So if you've done all the hard work of identifying your A1 task, then anything else you choose to do is, by definition, a relative waste of time.
And this is where self-discipline really cements the entire process. Albert Hubbard defines self-discipline as the ability to make yourself do what you should do when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not.
And persistence is just self-discipline in action.
That's right. The more you persist on a major task, the more you build self-respect and competence and feelings of strength. This single discipline, single handling it, actually molds your character. By continuously focusing until the most important task is complete, you become a more capable person. You're placed on this ascending spiral of personal effectiveness.
Okay, so we've built the internal system, but that system still has to operate in the real world that's full of obstacles. Let's look at managing those factors, starting with Principle 12. Identify your key constraints.
Right. Between you and any significant goal, whether it's career success, business growth, better health, there's always one major limiting factor, one bottleneck. And that bottleneck determines the speed of your progress. Your job is to find it accurately and then focus all your energy on alleviating that single choke point.
And this constraint could be internal, like a lack of a skill, or external, like competition. But the accuracy of identifying it is everything.
It is. The book gives a great example of a corporation that saw declining sales. They spent months retraining their entire sales force, believing the constraint was poor selling technique.
But it wasn't.
No. They later discovered the real limiting factor was an accounting error that had drastically overpriced their products. They were solving the wrong problem with massive resources.
So the 80-20 rule applies to constraints themselves.
Yes. 80% of constraints are internal. They're inside your own habits, abilities, or your company's structure. Only about 20% are truly external. So successful people always start by asking, what is it in me that's holding me back?
And if that limiting factor is identified as a skill gap, that pushes us right into Principle 11. Upgrade your key skills.
A huge, persistent reason for procrastination is that feeling of inadequacy in a key area. If you feel unskilled at financial forecasting, you'll naturally avoid that task. It's your frog. But the better you become at that skill, the more confidence you gain and the more eager you are to just dive in and get it done.
The basketball coach Pat Riley said, anytime you stop striving to get better, you're bound to get worse. Continuous learning is the minimum requirement for success.
And all business skills are learnable. The author shares that he learned touch typing specifically so he could write books more efficiently. It wasn't natural, but it was high leverage. So the book outlines 3 steps to master any key skill. First, read in your field for at least 1 hour every day.
Every single day.
Every day. This means getting up earlier and reading targeted material that makes you better at your KRAs. Second, take every course and seminar available on those key skills. Sit up front, take meticulous notes.
And third, Listen to audio programs in your car.
This is huge. The average person spends 500 to 1,000 hours driving each year. That's equivalent to 12 to 24 work weeks of dedicated time. If you turn that driving time into learning time, you can quickly become one of the smartest people in your field and remove those competence-based constraints.
Okay, we've covered clarity, process, competence. Let's talk about the fuel, motivation. Principle 14. Motivate yourself into action. You have to become your own cheerleader.
Your emotions, your energy levels, they're largely determined by your inner dialogue, how you talk to yourself about your situation. You have to resolve to become a complete optimist. Talk to yourself positively. I like myself, and I can do this.
The book references the work of Martin Seligman, who found that optimism is the most important single quality for success.
And optimism isn't just passive hope, it's a learned set of behaviors. Optimists do 4 key things. 1, they look for the good in every situation. 2, they seek the valuable lesson in every setback, believing difficulties come not to obstruct but to instruct.
I like that.
3, they look immediately for the solution to every problem. And 4, they think and talk continually about their goals. They focus on the future they're building, not the past they've suffered.
That self-motivation ties directly into Principle 13. Put the pressure on yourself. Don't wait for someone else to push you.
Exactly. Only about 2% of people are self-starters who can work without supervision. We call them leaders. To join them, you have to set high standards for yourself, higher than anyone else would set for you. Make a game of going the extra mile.
And a great tactic for this is creating forcing systems, like imaginary deadlines.
Right. Imagine you just won a month-long vacation and you have to leave tomorrow morning. What absolutely non-negotiably must be done before you go? Whatever that answer is, that's your A1 task. Start on it now.
By pushing yourself beyond where the average person would quit, you increase your self-esteem, your sense of personal power.
You're forging a high-performance personality built on self-imposed standards.
Okay, finally, let's tackle the biggest modern enemy of the frog, distraction. This is principles 15, 16, and 17, taming technology.
Technology is maybe the single greatest source of modern procrastination. When it's the master, it just creates stress and this obsessive need to be constantly communicating. People check their phones between 46 and 85 times a day. That is a massive distraction cost.
And the cost is physiological, as you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
the dopamine addiction.
It is. Every time you hear a notification, see a new email, it triggers a little dopamine buzz. And that reward encourages you to immediately shift your attention away from the important, difficult task you are doing. This isn't multitasking, it's task shifting, which just increases mistakes and mental fatigue.
And the mental transition cost is devastating. It takes about 17 minutes to fully regain deep focus after a serious interruption. So if you check your phone every 10 minutes, you're guaranteeing you never enter a state of flow.
So the solutions are simple, but they demand immense discipline. First, don't check email first thing in the morning. That triggers the all-day addiction loop. Second, turn off all notifications, sounds, and alerts permanently.
And third, check email only twice a day, say 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. And you provide an emergency channel, like a specific text number, only for critical contacts.
This discipline enables the double productivity trick. You start your A1 task, work nonstop for 90 minutes, take a 15-minute break, then work another 90 minutes. Only after that 3-hour block should you reward yourself by checking email. This breaks the addiction and can double your effective output.
So that's technology as masters. How do we make technology our servant, as Principle 16 describes?
You use technology to reinforce your priorities, not undermine them. For communication control, clear your digital workspace just like your physical one. Close unneeded tabs, disable notifications. For time control, never automatically accept calendar invites. Use your calendar to schedule those large, protected blocks of time.
We should also just address the fear of learning new technology.
That fear is a cognitive constraint. You have to refuse to be held back by the idea that you're not a tech person. All business skills, including tech skills, are learnable. Frustration is just part of the learning curve for everyone.
And finally, we can use technology for emotional control, for accountability.
Right. Post your biggest frog, your stretch goal, on a platform where your followers can see it. Update them on your progress. This creates external accountability and provides those little mini payoffs like encouragement that fuel your motivation when the long-term reward is far away. You're using social support to conquer procrastination.
This has been an incredibly extensive deep dive, pulling out 21 methods that really, when you use them together, they form a cohesive system for professional and personal mastery. But the core message that defines the whole thing is developing one singular defining habit, the habit of eating your biggest, ugliest frog first thing every single day.
It is a true system. It starts with clarity, using those 7 steps to define what success looks like. It demands prioritization, applying the 80-20 rule and the ABCDE method. It requires focused execution, using single handling and time blocking to maintain a sense of urgency. And finally, it demands continuous improvement, upgrading your skills, and relentlessly identifying your key constraints.
The power of this whole system, at the end of the day, it rests on self-discipline and persistence. The more you discipline yourself to tackle and persist on a major task, the more you build self-respect, competence, and confidence. It launches you onto that ascending spiral of personal effectiveness.
Right. Self-discipline molds character. It makes you a superior person, capable of setting and achieving any goal you define for yourself. So if focusing on just the biggest, ugliest task allows you to systematically become the master of your own destiny, what long-held limitation or overwhelming goal are you ready to finally define as your first frog tomorrow morning?